Well, thank you so much for being here. It's really great that you take pride and you're involved with your district. Thank you so much. Uh, Please say hello to Noreen Sullivan, my field rep. Isn't that great, Noreen? So, well, thank you so much. And if you're not getting our newsletter, contact Noreen and send her your email and just tell her you wanna get on our email list and you get our newsletter. We don't bother you. We just send it out and you read it. And the second thing is we always promote the Pasadena City Service Center app. In fact, someone was talking to me today about it. And all you do is you get on the app, you make a request by a department. All the departments are on there, and then staff will let you know when that request will get done. And there's a phone number too. It's 626-744-7311. Okay. We have some tables here with people manning some tables for things, and we're like right over there. And please go over there. We have people that are going to have, let's see, we have the historic things over there as well. So for Pasadena, and the median, the Pasadena median as well. Is that what you're doing there? What is it? Historic Pasadena. Okay, thank you. A quick announcement. On Saturday, this Saturday, November 16th, the Armenian Festival will be here in Victory Park at 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. There'll be food, music, shopping, art, dance, and enjoy Armenian cultural experience. Bo, where are you? Bo's back there, Bo Patatian. If you need any more information about it, please talk to her, talk to him, and he has the handouts as well. Okay, before I introduce some of the people that we're going to have today, I want to just tell you a little bit about what's happening in our district. Have you been on Foothill where you've seen the Panda restaurant being built right now? Have you seen it? Yeah, well, it is. It's actually bigger than I thought it was going to be, but it looks really nice. I could see the lights inside, so they're working on the interior right now. Behind the Panda restaurant on Foothill, you can see some framework. You can see some building going on. It's 233 residential units, and you can see the framing. If you get on the freeway, you can see the wood frame from the freeway. So take a look at that. 233 residential units. Vina Vieja Park. Okay, there was 3 pickleball courts built there, and we went and had a ribbon cutting in August, and there's 3 courts, brand new courts. They're not tennis court conversions, they're brand new. And what's on the plans is to have 9 more there as well. So what we're talking about, where underneath the Edison corridor, near the dog park, south of the dog park there. There's a project that I thought was very interesting. We have a lot of residential projects going on in our city, but this was the Rosetown Apartments at 170 North Halsted. And I attended with the mayor and our Mayor Gordo and our housing director, Bill Wong. We made some comments, but what was really interesting about this project, and at this project, it's 100% affordable housing, 100% affordable housing. Not like the inclusionary ordinance that's 20%, but 100%. And why this is important for our city, we do lose some residents, some families, so we're trying to, we understand it because we lose some people and families that attend our schools, and we want to always make sure that we make housing affordable for them. So it's not easy. Now the city we don't build anything, not the city, but we want to make it so that the people that we're dealing with, the developers, we want to be able to work with them so that they will continue to build in Pasadena. Okay, on Saturday, February 24th, Noreen and I had a CERT meeting, which is a emergency preparation meeting by our fire department, and we had it at Pasadena Church and on Sierra Madre Boulevard. Now, if you haven't gone to one of these, I really recommend that you do, so that in case in an emergency, we have a large earthquake, and that's what we're worried about. I mean, right now, we think everything is good, and we're very relaxed. And what happens with your emergency kit, you probably use all your water and your food, and then you don't replenish it. So going to these meetings, it kind of reminds you what you should be doing. So CERT meeting by our fire department. So keep that in mind. The last thing I want to talk about is that we attended an open house and a ribbon cutting on Rosemead Boulevard, and that was Motive Space Systems, which is the spot is at the former Robbins Barbecue Restaurant. You know where that is? Okay, all right. That's the place, but it doesn't look anything like it was before. And it's really a beautiful place now. It looks like a real fancy garage inside there, but it's really neat. So this company, they helped build the Mars rover, and Motive works on the satellite servicing, that is repairing spacecraft while in orbit. So any design equipment that can be withstand, and they do design equipment that can withstand extreme cold. So that's what they do. It's a real fancy company, high tech, and I'm glad that they're in our district. Okay, that's all I have to say on some of the things that are happening in our district. Tonight we have presentations by our city manager, Miguel Marquez. Then we have our fire chief Augustine, our police chief, Gene Harris, our Rose Bowl update by our RBOC commissioner and former District 4 council member, Steve Hatterline, and a presentation the presentation for the Sierra Madre Boulevard median improvements. This is a real big issue in our district because, for a long time, the median was looking really bad, and a lot of weeds and everything that goes with it. And there was a time after the 2011 windstorm that we had, we were going to just put mulchings on it, but we had a lot of complaints from the residents not to do that because they want to use the median for walking and exercising as well. So not just one beautiful plants. So what else? Steve, man. Oh, the people that are doing the Sierra Madre Boulevard presentation today will be from Public Works, Brett Maui, and Pasadena Stormwater Administrator Don Petshower. I think I have everyone there. And so, we also have, is Donson Lou here from a transportation department? Okay, good. Thank you for being here. So what we're going to do, this is how it's going to work. Here's the plan. We're going to do the presentations. After, we'll stand up here for questions and answers. And then after we're done with that, we'll stay for one-on-one questions. Okay? So that's the plan. And here's our policy. When we don't have the answer, you're going to give us your information, and then we'll send you the answer to your question because we really don't want to guess. That's not good. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our city manager, Miguel Marquez. How do you like this podium that I made? I asked staff here if they had one, and they said we used to have one, but not right now. I'm going to leave this here.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Great.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never seen a better use of check mix and a trash can. This is amazing. So good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. As Councilmember Masuda said, I'm Miguel Marquez. I'm the city manager, and I've now completed 2 years, going on my third year, and I think this might be the third time I've gotten to address all of you. So it's a real privilege to be here tonight to tell you some of the things that are going on in the city. More importantly, for you to hear from members of my team about the different areas that they're working on. So first and foremost, I wanted to say thanks for your participation in the election last week. I know you got to vote even before that with early voting and vote centers, but you know, I got here in essentially September of 2022. And since I've been here, the city has put on 10 measures, including Measure L, which is for the operations of the library. We put on 8 different charter amendments, and we put on Measure PL, which is a $195 million bond to retrofit the central library and upgrade it. And those 10 measures, all of them passed. It's just incredible support from you all. So, yikes. So say a word about the library. You know, it's almost 100 years old. It was built and finished in 1927. I had an internal goal of let's try to get the money, let's try to get everything built and get it done by 2027. I don't think that's going to be possible. It'll probably be sometime in 2028. But now we know we have a path to get there. And it's going to be an incredible facility, 100,000 plus square feet of essentially a community gathering space that, since we're having to retrofit it and do what they call the shear wall approach, we're also going to take that opportunity, since the guts are going to be open, put new plumbing, new electrical, new HVAC, so that it really can become, you know, I know books and electronic and all that keeps changing, but what we're doing is wiring it up. So whatever information exchange becomes in the next century, that central, beautiful central library will be the hub for community gathering and information exchange in the 21st century for the next 100 years. So thank you so much for support on that measure and the other measures as well. Other issues we've been hard at work on: homelessness. We all know that it's a crisis in our society. I wanted to give you some data. Every year in the January, February timeframe, they do the point in time count. We get a whole lot of volunteers, a whole lot of city staff, and we go out all night, then go back the next morning and count the number of unhoused individuals in the city. It was just a matter of interest that in 2022, that number was 556. No, that's not right. That's in 2023. 2023, it was 556. That was made mostly of about 250 people in shelters and about 300 people out on the streets. Last year, we did the count again, and the count came out at exactly 556, which is interesting. And I'll tell you why it's interesting, because in that 2-year period, we actually provided permanent housing for 720 people. We did 310 in 2022, and we did another 410 in 2023. So we housed 720 people. That's something we all did together, yet the number stayed the same because the pipeline is so big. Now, that said, there's a different statistic. Point in time is one point in time. And the bigger and more important number is how many people fall into homelessness over the year. So there's some good news there. In 2022, 1,208 people fell into homelessness. In 2023, that number dropped to 1,097. That's a 9% decrease. And that's significant. That's in part because of all the permanent housing that we built for folks. Upcoming challenge is going to be, you all probably heard the words Grant Pass, a Supreme Court case, U.S. Supreme Court, that talks about homelessness and what can be done. We try to take a very thoughtful approach, and we went to the city council. We had an hour-long presentation and then a 3-hour discussion about our path forward in light of the changes relating to Grants Pass. I think a lot of people were surprised to see how many programs we have to help and deal with our homelessness crisis. We're doing a lot of things on a lot of different fronts. That includes the Port team, the Hope team, lots and lots of nonprofits that are helping us get this work done. After that, 4-hour meeting and discussion, What I pulled away from it is something that I wrote in the city manager's newsletter, that I think homelessness is so important. I want to read to you what I drew from it, and what our city path forward is currently. The city remains committed to the goal of making homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring. Law enforcement decisions in every interaction will be based on all facts and circumstances, will be case-specific, and will rely on the sound exercise of judgment at the scene. But generally speaking, one, the police department should not cite any person solely for sleeping in a public place if there are no other violations of public health and safety laws or other laws as may be applicable. Two, the police department should take appropriate enforcement action for violations of public health and safety laws, as well as other laws as may be applicable, whether committed by housed or unhoused individuals, in order to protect public safety, public health, and the public order. And three, and finally, the prosecution of any such enforcement actions involving both housed and unhoused individuals should, when appropriate, have a goal of encouraging the criminal justice system to connect offenders to services for mental health treatment, addiction recovery services, and other supportive programs as warranted. So really what we're doing is, in many respects, doubling down on our care first approach, but at the same time, where laws need to be enforced for the public safety, public health, and public order, we will take appropriate measures. So that's sort of some of the big picture things happening on homelessness. Other big important things, at least in my opinion, because it's my job and what I have to take care of, the budget and finances. You know, I look around and I see a federal government that's spending money in deficit and increasing the national debt every year by trillions of dollars. I look at our state, and though we had I think it was a $98 billion surplus a couple of years ago, this year they said, oh, we got a $50 billion deficit. I look at Los Angeles, city of Los Angeles. I think theirs was a $400 million deficit. I look at our own public school district, and they announced they have a 2-year deficit of $50 million. The problems are everywhere around us. I'm pleased to tell you that we've been very cautious. We've been budgeting carefully. It's frustrating sometimes, I think, to my department heads when I have to tell them, sorry, there's just not enough money to grow like we want to grow, because they see needs. They see a lot of things they want to fix, but we have to be careful. I'm pleased to tell you that we do not have a deficit. We have our reserves fully funded. We have the rating agencies that come and look at things like the $195 million bond we're going to issue, and they say, this city is well managed, they have reserves, and they give us the highest credit rating, so we pay the lowest interest and we get more for your tax dollars. So it's good news. We also are making incredible progress on what's called the Resolution 9977. It's a resolution passed by the council that made a goal that we go carbon-free by 2030 in our operations as a utility. I just looked up what we call the Clean Energy Tracker. You can look it up on our website. If you just type in a Google search, Pasadena Energy Tracker, you see where we are. And where we are today with resources we have secured, most recently at the last council meeting, or maybe the one before, we just approved another $137 million contract for solar and wind. We are now right around 90% carbon free if we just stopped everything we're doing now and just waited till 2030. We still have more than 5 years to get there. I think, essentially more than 6 even. But we are moving as fast as we can. We're making substantial progress. I encourage you to look at that energy tracker to keep up and hold us accountable. We know what we have to do. And even here, it's not just the energy that we produce or the energy that we purchase from other places. Also, we are trying to really build out our EV charging network. And, I happen to come here. I do drive an EV. I needed a charge, and there's a charging station right out there, and I'm charging as we speak. There have been some issues with supply chain that have made it difficult when they break down to get them repaired, but we're on track. Most of them are working now. We're going to continue working until they're all up and running, and we hope to make that available. And as an EV owner, I can tell you there's no better deal than getting your charge from Power Up Pasadena. It's 15 cents during the daytime a kilowatt hour, 20 cents at night. Sometimes we don't realize how blessed we are to be here in Pasadena. My parents live out in Santa Ana. That's powered up by Southern Cal Edison, and the rates there on the cheap end go at 36 cents and the expensive end 78 cents. So to get it for 15 and 20 is really a bargain. Let's see, one other thing I wanted to bring up is language access. It's our population is very diverse. If you're unfamiliar, it's 37% Latino, 18% Asian, about 8% African American, about 32% white. And we just have a plethora of different languages spoken among us. If you look now on all of the city's website, you'll see a little thing on the top that lets you pick from among, I didn't count, but I'll bet you it's 10 or 12 different languages. And that's really helping out everybody in our community get the information they need to access our services in the language they're most comfortable in. So those are my big picture accomplishments, if you will, that I think the city has been very fortunate to have accomplished this past year. But there's a whole lot more. I don't want to steal the thunder from all the progress we've made in fire management, in our policing, and in public works, and in what Pasadena Water and Power is doing. We have other speakers for that. So thank you for your attention, and I will get out of the way and let you get to the good stuff. And I'm going to introduce our fire chief, Chad Augustine.
Good evening. Before I start, I promised Noreen, if any of you know Noreen, you don't want to get on her bad side. She told me I had to move the stand. Good evening to everyone. For those of you I have not met, my name is Chad Augustine, your Pasadena Fire Chief. With me tonight, I have Nayeli Procopio, and she's the city's new emergency manager. And you're going to hear from her shortly because there's a lot of great work that she's doing. First, I want to thank Councilmember Masuda and Noreen for allowing me to be here tonight. Really enjoy being able to come and share what the fire department is doing. So I got about 5 topics I'd like to highlight. And thanks to my boss, the city manager, Councilmember Masuda, and all of City Council, we were able to add a 6th full-time rescue ambulance this last year for the first time in almost 20 years. And that ambulance is now at Fire Station 37 in front of Foothill. So the 2 fire stations in your district now both have ambulances, which is a great addition. Another thing that we've been working on really hard over the last 3 years, when I got here, we were not compliant in our state mandated inspections. In fact, our compliance rate was about 24%. And if you think back to the Ghost Ship fire in Oakland, where, gosh, I think over 30 people died in a fire, that really changed the regulations for assemblies, educational, so schools, and any place where you might lay your head. And the reason those are so important is we want to make sure that they're safe for all of our residents and all of our visitors, so that if there is a fire, they have all the necessary safety precautions in place. And so over the last year and a half, we've been able to double the number of fire inspectors. And by the end of this year, we'll be up to 100% in our state mandated inspections, which is fantastic. The other thing we've been able to do, one of the pain points for any of our business owners in this room has been able to get an inspection, whether you need to do an annual inspection or you're doing an addition. It was up to 3 weeks of a delay to get that inspection scheduled. And when time is money, that's a lot of delay. And so adding those new inspectors, we expect that you'll be able to get an inspection within a week now. And we're even shooting to get that down to less than a week. So more to come on that. Let's talk wildfires. It's been another devastating wildfire season, and we're not over with yet. We just hit the 1 million acre mark for the state of California in the last couple weeks with over 7,600 wildfires. And that recent fire in Ventura County was just devastating. And with some of the wind conditions you saw, that was a big challenge for a lot of firefighters. Your Pasadena Fire Department, we've committed over 40 deployments this year already, with over 400 days committed to those 40 deployments. So why do we do that? Well, most importantly, it's neighbor helping neighbor, right? No agency in the state of California, and actually across the country, has enough resources. Not even our neighbors right outside of us, LA County, who's one of the biggest fire stations, fire departments in the country. They don't have enough resources. And so it really takes neighbor helping neighbor to put those fires out. And the benefit to us is when we have our need, those agencies will come and help us on our day of need. So a lot of work by your Pasadena Fire Department, but a lot of good experience. And again, a lot of good relationships so that when we have a need, those resources will be there for us. Additionally, one of the things we've been working on, which you'll hear a little bit more on our evacuation plan, when I got here over the last 3 years, we've updated all of our agreements with our local agencies. That's LA County, LA City, and Angeles National Forest, ANF. And the reason that's so important is all of them have resources that Pasadena Fire does not have. Hand crews, dozers, and most importantly for me is aircraft. So when we need helicopters and fixed-wing aircraft in a moment of a large brush fire, we get those at a moment's notice. So all of those agreements have been updated, and we have many of those on our first alarm brush assignments now, which should give you peace of mind. Probably the best hire that the city has made in many years is a full-time emergency manager. For many years, many of you know Lisa Derdarian, who's a really good friend of mine. That was a shared role for her. She balanced the city public information officer role as well as the emergency manager. And when Miguel got here, he heard loud and clear from a lot of people that we need to be advocating for a full-time emergency manager, and he went and advocated to the council. So thank you, Councilmember Masuda. The amount of work that Nelly has done in the last year, she just hit her 1-year mark to help make Pasadena a safer place to live, has been incredible. Last week, we just did a first ever tabletop exercise in the Linda Vista area. And the tabletop exercise was a brush fire. And it just so happened to time out that we were right in the middle of Ventura County's a large fire with many evacuations and many homes burned. And we had about half of our city departments in attendance also, which is exactly what would need to happen if we had a brush fire with evacuations. Our police department would be helping us with the mandatory evacuations. Transportation would be helping us with buses to get people out of the neighborhoods. We'd have housing and public health, all the necessary services. And so that was a really good first step for us to be able to exercise our evacuation plan. And we look forward to doing a second tabletop after the first of the year, sometime next spring here in Councilmember Masuda's district. So more to come on that. But our goal really is to make sure that all of our residents are prepared for the next disaster. And with that, I want to turn it over to Naomi to talk a little bit about emergency preparedness.
Hi, my name is Nayeli Procopio. As the chief has said, I am the city's emergency manager. I just really quickly want to thank you all for being here. Really, my job is basically fostering community connection in getting us all prepared. I actually had my first testing class, thanks to Noreen, last year in this district with our Prepared Pasadena program. And that was a rebranding of the CERT overview, which is a very sandwiched part of our CERT program, which is the Community Emergency Response Team. So we teach you personal preparedness, basic first aid, some light search and rescue, things that you can go home and actually use with your family to be better prepared. And we teach you that on a Saturday or whatever day really works for you all in 4 hours. And that's going to be a program that is available to you all basically year round. And if you do want us to bring that back to this district, just talk to Noreen and we'll get that going. We also graduated our first CERT class in October, and that was citywide. And I'm hoping to bring some more of those as well in the new year. And we're already planning our spring one. And I also want to streamline how you sign up for these programs. So all of that will be available on our website in order for you to sign up, whatever date works for you. It doesn't have to be in your district. And as the chief has mentioned, we are working on another tabletop for the city. And that's basically really bringing the concept of how we prepare to you all and kind of showcase our capabilities. What we learned in these tabletops really is how we all have to come together to coordinate. And we're asking that of you, the residents, as well. So you are part of the team. that makes up the city. And I am here to basically train you all up to be part of our team. And that's pretty much all. What? Oh, yes, thank you. The other thing that we are working on that's citywide is the local hazard mitigation plan. And thank you for not letting me forget that. We will have flyers in every single library. We will be doing presentations around the city at different commissions, at different community meetings. The reason why is because part of this plan is identifying our physical hazards throughout the city. So wildfires, land movement, windstorms are just a few that we have identified. But you guys live here. Whatever you perceive as a hazard is going to be part of our survey. And that will feed into our plan to try to mitigate the hazards, but also the impacts of those hazards. And in a few weeks or so, we're actually really close to finalizing our outreach materials. There'll be a survey on the website, on our social medias, where we're actually asking you all to get yourself involved and also your neighbors to give us feedback. The feedback is vital for us to actually get this plan approved by the state and by FEMA. If we don't hit kind of like the minimal public outreach, we won't get this plan move forward. And this plan is very important to us because in any case that we're trying to mitigate actions, there is federal and state funding. So we want to keep our general funds in the general fund. And if there's any way that we can leverage our plans to get funding, we will. And then the other thing is, in the unfortunate event that we do have an emergency incident where we do require FEMA funding, this plan is a requirement in order to receive that funding. So it's very, very important for you all to get involved. And then if you all have any questions or want to bring me to your neighborhood to talk about preparedness, you can email me at preparedpasadena@cityofpasadena.net, or you can reach me through Noreen as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. My city manager, Marquez, just gave me a good reminder. So this last weekend, we had a really devastating fire that impacted 6 houses and displaced a lot of families. And there's 2 important reminders that I want to highlight. That was a composting, like mulch, that had sat in a dumpster for a couple days and spontaneously combusted. So it's a really good reminder. Keep your trash cans away. It caught a fence on fire and then moved on to a house and caught multiple houses on fire. But we're also rolling right into the cold and holiday season, right? And every year we see a lot of fires from people who are cleaning out their fireplace and they put hot ashes in a trash can and that catches fire. So just really good awareness on where you store anything that could catch fire. Keep it away from anything combustible. If you're cleaning out your fireplace, make sure you really cool it down using, you can soak all those ashes. We'd rather see you in this form and not when your house is on fire. So please stay safe this holidays and we'll see you in this forum instead. Thank you. And next, I want to introduce one of my most favorite people in the city, Police Chief Gene Harris.
There's a lot of love going on here, yeah? You're one of my most favorite people, too. So before I get started, thank you for having us here. We're always glad to come out here and interact with folks in the community, so we do really appreciate the invite to come out here and really give you some information and stick around and answer questions for you. But before I get started, I'll let you know that as a city manager and Miguel Marquez, you always have a truth teller. So that's what we really appreciate about him, is that he's a truth teller. He tells it like it is. And so it is good for us and fortunate that we are fiscally sound and being managed in a way that allows us to be at that point. But it is also true that all of the department heads really do get upset when we can't get the money we ask for. But it's part of the game and we understand it. But as a team, we all come together to try to make this work. And our boss and our leadership team are working every day to try and make sure that we meet the needs of this community in that regard. So just a couple of things to go over, make it quick and then get out of the way here for questions. You heard the city manager talk about homelessness and some of the ways that we're dealing with it in light of the new grants pass decision. And again, we are operating from on the police department a care first modality. The message is that we are going to treat homelessness as something other than a crime. We want to make sure that we are getting services to folks and certainly making sure the community can operate with the care and due concern for these folks so we can get them to some help and get them to the place where they need to be. But we will also be responsive to your calls if there are issues that need to be dealt with. And so for us, Grants Pass, although it provides some tools, the way that we're going to apply those tools is simply going to be and remain the care first piece. And our police department, our HOPE team, and the port team from the fire department do a great job in really, in a positive way, kind of motivating folks to get to services and pushing services to those people that find themselves in that situation. So you're going to see a lot more of that. We're looking to bring on another clinician, looking to get, make that service a lot more robust in the future so we can go out here and really deal with the circumstances as they come around. Staffing is a big thing. If you might be listening to the news, everybody's scared that they're not going to have the staffing to kind of meet the needs, the law enforcement needs of their community. I'm proud to say that from a sworn officer perspective, though we can always use more bodies and we'll be pushing for those things in the future, ideally, we are between 4 and 6 people from being fully staffed. And so that is a good thing for the police department. So when we can keep those wheels turning and we can kind of get people to come on and be a part of our team, it's great. So this is going to be my recruitment pitch, that if you know anybody who's looking to be a police officer or looking to be involved in professional services for law enforcement, we're always hiring and we have a constant cycle that we're working to get people on. And we'll take anybody that you can send to us, put them through a background, and if they're good to go, you can take credit for contributing that person to our community and to our community service. So we look forward to that. Our recruitment efforts are robust. We're reaching out beyond just the normal let's catch the fly in the web kind of recruitment strategy where we set up a booth and hope somebody comes up and signs up with us. We're reaching out to other states. We're reaching out to military bases. We're going out to universities and trying to recruit in places that maybe aren't your typical recruitment areas, but looking to really define a new recruitment strategy to get people on and come work in the beautiful city of Pasadena. You might have recognized that there was a recent election. I don't think anybody slept through that one, but the stuff that happens locally is what really impacts us. And so there were 2 things that happened locally that are important. One is there'll be a new LA County District Attorney, and whatever your personal feelings are about the position and the change, the reality is that we're always going to have changes in that regard. And sometimes it's going to fluctuate one way and other times it'll fluctuate another way. But we have to operate professionally and within the confines of the law, and certainly work with our professional partners over at LA County and certainly on the judicial branch at dealing with some of the challenges we may face in our communities. And so I'm personally familiar with the new DA, Nathan Hochman. I think that we are going to move in a really good direction with having him there. We're going to work well with him, with the LA County police chiefs and certainly the California police chiefs to kind of give us some more tools and work our way through making sure that we can rid our communities of crime and fear and do it in a way that's responsible and doesn't kind of lead us down a path that we wish we could alter. We're going to kind of put some really sound thinking into the things that we're going to do, which leads us to Prop 36, which is another thing that happened in this election. Prop 36 passed. And what Prop 36 is really just a balance to Prop 47. Sometimes pendulums swing a long way, one way or the other. 36 will kind of balance us back out. Doesn't take us too far in one direction or the other, but provide some common sense corrections and course corrections so that we can have some tools to take care of you folks in the community. And I think it's going to work out well, as do my colleagues at other police departments. Another big deal for us is as a result of some some fiscal goings on with the county, we're going to have the opportunity to engage even deeper with LA County youth diversion and really getting our kids some services that might be on the brink of going down the wrong path of a life in crime. We want to make sure that we got kids that when they make a mistake, we get them corrected so they can become fruitful members of society. And working with the county and some of our local resources like Flint Ridge, it's going to really put us in a position where we have some teeth to our diversion efforts and we can get kids to the right place so they're not going down the wrong road and having to deal with them later in life in a life of crime. Speaking of crime, violent crime is low here in our city. It's gone down tremendously, which is a good thing, primarily because of folks like you who, when you see something, you say something, and we get an opportunity to get out there and engage with folks and prevent crime as much as it is responding to crime. So a kudos to you. Make sure you're using that phone on a regular basis. We'll take all of your calls and we'll respond to any call you give us in a timely fashion. And the other piece of that is, since we're standing in a park, I think it's apropos to discuss park safety. We've certainly made our park safety efforts more robust. We've included more personnel on our park safety team. We've done some changes to hours and are really trying to address the needs of people in our parks and our recreational areas so that we can get people out here and have fun here without having to worry. And our team is really doing a good job as the incidents in parks have reduced. And so we're hoping to kind of bring those to zero. Wishful thinking on my part, but that's what I am, optimistic. We're going to get there at some point. Interesting element, another thing that was introduced, I'd like to take credit for it. I have no problem standing up here, breaking my arm, patting myself on the back, but this idea came from the city manager. And that was to create an accountability link on our website, which we've done, which gives you the opportunity to go onto our website and see all of the areas which we are held accountable, the agencies that we must report to, the agencies that we have to, give information and get information to ensure that we're operating in the way that we need to operate. And you'll be surprised at the number of people that are responsible, or that we are responsible to answering to, for the entirety of the police department, both inside the state, federal level, county level, and some city endeavors. So it's really important to take a look at that, because it'll kind of put people at ease that we're not just running amok as an organization. We're not out there, like sometimes they say, where we're just out there going crazy and doing things we shouldn't be doing. We definitely have a lot of people looking over our shoulder, and rightfully so. And we want to be transparent and really dealing with those folks on a regular level. So that was a very good idea, and it's now being put into practice. Last two things I'll talk to you about is it's an exciting time for us in the police department. We are putting together a leadership assessment, and that's going to be a voluntary leadership assessment where we've brought in an auditor from the outside, a company that's going to look at our leadership from lieutenant up through the chief and give us an analysis of where we are as a leadership team and whether or not we need to improve or where we need to improve. And hopefully we'll get a good grade. And if it's not a good grade, we'll do what we have to do to get where we need to get. But we also want to make sure that that is an assessment that is open and really transparent, so that it's not being influenced by us, but certainly serves to influence us and make us better as a leadership team. I expect to have the results for that by the end of the year. And in my end of year report, I'll make sure that the public gets the indicators of what it is that we either need to fix or where we do things really well. And so we'll get an opportunity to show that to you at the end of the year. And the last thing I'll talk to you about is holiday events and holiday safety. You heard the fire chief talking about the importance of fire safety and safety in general, and making sure that you're paying attention to things that could otherwise lead to some bad results. The police department wants to send the same message. You see something, say something. If there's something that you feel isn't right, make sure you're calling us. But most important during this holiday season, be aware of your surroundings. When you're shopping, when you're having people over, be aware of your surroundings and make sure you're not putting yourself in a position that is prone to have something happen to you. If you're carrying a really nice, expensive bag, so with that, I just want to tell you thank you for being here. We have a lot going on, and we're going to continue to serve you in the best way possible. So with that, I'm going to introduce our Rose Bowl folks to come up and give you a little bit of a repartee.
Well, the chief said folks, but I'm one, so it's a folk. First off, I want to acknowledge City Manager Marquez, Chief Augustine, and Chief Harris. as well as Emergency Manager Procopio. Did I get it right? These are folks that have very time-consuming jobs, very important jobs, and our city is doing well because they're doing a great job. So please, around. As was mentioned, Steve Hatterline, I serve on what's called the Rose Bowl Operating Company. The briefest of backgrounds, the Rose Bowl Operating Company is a body that is appointed by the City Council to oversee two city assets, the Rose Bowl Stadium and the Brookside Golf Course. And it's our responsibility to manage these things 12 months out of the year. And that's what we do. So I want to thank Gene for the opportunity to have done that. Thank you, Gene. Quick history. And when you talk about the Rose Bowl Stadium and Brookside, it's hard to have a quick history because these are assets that are, one's over 100 years old and the other's approaching 100, but I'm only going to take you back a few years. And that is to roughly 2018, 2019. And at that point, the Rose Bowl Operating Company realized that the way we were managing those assets did not generate enough cash to pay for the operating expenses, the bond debt associated with the pavilion that had been built several years earlier, and preventative maintenance. So we underwent a process to identify new sources of revenue so as to generate that cash. And then COVID happened. So that threw everything into a challenge. But as we came out of it, we had plans to generate more revenue. And basically, the two sources of revenue, one is to put on more what we call displacement events. That is to say the larger events, the soccer matches, the concerts. And to put it in context, previously we were limited to 15. We went to 25, and with the support of Councilmember Masuda and the city manager, we've been given approval to go up to 25 events, 10 additional events. Each event roughly generates $500,000 to $750,000. So you do the math, and now you're generating $5 to $7.5 million a year. Keep in mind our deficit was about $8 million. That's the hole we were trying to work our way out of. In addition, we identified what we call the T-bid, that is to say the hotels contributed about $1 million in sales tax generations. So we've been able to turn the operations around. And I think that's an important thing, and it's something that is, I think, maybe a little hard to understand, because if the Rose Bowl Operating Company isn't generating the cash, or the assets aren't generating the cash, then it falls back on the city. And that means the city has to contribute to paying the debt or the preventative maintenance. And that means cuts to parks and transportation programs, and nobody wants that. So I think that was a sound path to put the operations back in place. So that puts us to where we are today, on sound footing operationally. That is to say, ability to pay the operating expenses, preventative maintenance, and the bond debt. But we operate two assets that are approaching 100, well, one's over 100 years, one's approaching 100 years, and they require capital. So in a month or so, you're going to start to hear some plans to invest into the stadium. And that's very exciting to myself, and I think to all of us, that we're reinvesting in these assets. It means that the Rose Bowl Stadium has a future, beyond a few years. The golf course has a future beyond a few years. And what we look forward to is a very vibrant Rose Bowl Stadium, a very active golf course, and you'll see things like college football or quarterfinal games, and the Olympics coming to town. And these are very exciting things. And for a city of our size, I mean, you got to remember, we're 150,000 people. For us to be able to participate in that and to be part of that, I think is something that says something about our community, that we're a little bit bigger than perhaps we are. So that's the update on the Rose Bowl Stadium. The operations have stabilized. We're reinvesting in the stadium. We have some exciting things on the horizon, probably the biggest being the Olympics. But we also have, and I forgot to mention as we're going forward, in 2025, in anticipation of the World Cup, you'll hear about the World Cup tournament, which the Rose Bowl Stadium will participate in. That is to say, some big-name soccer clubs will be coming to Pasadena. And all of that means some excitement around town. It means our hotels are busy. It means our restaurants are full. All of that is kind of good stuff. So we're very excited about the future. And my last comment is serving on the Rose Bowl Operating Committee, you get a chance to talk to other people who manage stadiums. And a lot of these stadiums sort of have a time horizon. Like they're talking about 15, 20 years, maybe SoFi's 30, 40 years, but they really don't think long term. When you have conversations about the Rose Bowl Stadium, there's never a deadline. There's never a finish to it. It's just assumed that the stadium will always be there. And I think that's true. We just have a strong belief that this stadium will be in our community as long as we continue to invest in it. And we'll be here long after some of these other stadiums have come and gone. So with that, it's my privilege to introduce, got to get my notes out, a couple folks from Public Works who are working on an exciting project, the Sierra Madre Boulevard Median, which, Gene, I got to give you credit. When I was in the council, I worked as hard as I could on that, never got any progress. You've gotten progress on it, so congrats to Gene, a round of applause. And it is my opportunity to my privilege to introduce Brett Maui and Dawn Petschauer, who will talk about the Sierra Madre Boulevard Median project.
Oh, there we go. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dawn Petschauer. I'm the city's Stormwater Program Manager. I see a lot of familiar faces. We've had many outreach events, so I'm excited to come and give another progress update. And I appreciate Gene and Noreen for allowing us to talk today. I can usually see my slides, so it's a lot easier, but I'm used to giving presentations, so I'm going to assist with my phone and have my lovely boss be an assistant there with next sliding me. So are we on the first one? Okay. So the project, as they mentioned, is the Sierra Madre Median Enhancements and Master Plan. Go ahead, next slide. And like I said, we've given several talks on this. It is a really exciting project. I've been in the city about 2 years. This is the first one I'm project managing myself. It's a little near and dear to my heart, but we're going to go over today a little bit about the background of the project if you guys are not familiar with it. What was sort of driving it to become the project that the city prioritized, some of the existing conditions, if you're familiar, you know what they look like. Then we're going to talk about the project scope itself, which is really centered on stormwater capture and urban greening enhancement along the corridors. We'll talk about the landscape design elements and then the community benefits we expect to materialize from this project once it's constructed. Then we'll talk about the public outreach and engagement we've had to date, the funding considerations, and the next steps in the project. Go ahead, next slide. Thanks. So a little bit of background on the project. In the red rectangle that you can see is the median enhancement project itself. So this is looking at the medians that used to be the former Pacific railcar lines. It's starting on the eastern part of our city on Michelinda Avenue and extending west to East Washington. And the idea is really to reimagine the city-owned undeveloped space. As was mentioned over here, it's left being vacant. There's a very large storm drain that runs underneath the medians themselves that conveys water from Upper Hastings Ranch, the city of Sierra Madre, and others over to Eaton Wash, which if you know stormwater, it goes untreated, bringing all the pollution with it and down into the oceans. So we're looking at reimagining this corridor with some urban greening enhancements and some stormwater capture elements. Next slide. And so the project itself stemmed from a history of community and environmental concerns. So we have the city-owned undeveloped space, which makes it a perfect opportunity to do a project. The corridor itself is in dire need of reimagining. It's a heavy arterial corridor. There's 3 lanes of traffic going east and westbound. There's a lot of generation of pollution and not a lot of tree canopy or enhancement along the corridor itself. Like I mentioned, there's stormwater that flows underneath, so it's really easy for us to intercept that stormwater and then to really address some water resiliency and climate change considerations along the corridor itself. Next slide. Oh, this is so difficult. So the existing conditions you can see right here, it's really sparse vegetation. The trees that are out there sit very far between. It's 98% non-native vegetation and trees, and just a bunch of very thirsty turf that we know during the drought turned brown when we're unable to water it, just leaving it a little bit of an eyesore. That along with the limited tree canopy just really presents itself as a great opportunity for the city to come in and do something better for the community. Next slide. So based on these concerns and conditions, the city prioritized this project under our city manager and adopted it into our CIP project and program for fiscal year 2025. You can see it right up there top. The funding for the feasibility study itself was garnered from the State Clean Water Program, which is Measure W, another very critical measure that was passed in 2018 by voter approval. The city used those funds to now proceed with the design itself. We're using almost $1 million of our local return. So all grant-funded measured dollars being used to present this project. Oh, I can move, yay. Okay, that's so much better. Next slide, please. Thanks. Ooh. So the objective itself is to divert. That's even better. Thank you. Can you hear me here? Yay. Movement. So the objective here is really, like I said, to divert the stormwater flows that are running underneath the medians themselves. So Sierra Madre Villa Avenue as well as New York Avenue, we're going to intercept drains there underneath the ground. Much of it will not be seen above the ground surface. They'll be diverted into some dry wells that are underneath the ground that will allow us to recharge the Raymond Aquifer underneath. They'll also use some above ground amenities such as bioretention cells to collect the surface runoff into the medians themselves. And there'll be a tremendous amount of new vegetation that is put along the medians. So we started, like I said, with the feasibility study in 2022. We did our first outreach in 2023. If you guys were there, I appreciate you then at the time. And from that, we were able to move into an initial concept in the design that started place the beginning of this year. Go ahead, next slide. So the median project itself is actually broken into 2 phases. And as we just heard from the Rose Bowl operating company, that's because we know that once a year the Tournament of Roses ends the parade right about East Washington. So the green area from Michelinda on the east all the way to East Washington Boulevard is phase 1. This is what we're designing currently. This is going to be a median enhancement project inside the medians themselves. And then in order to make this a contiguous project, the master plan, as we're calling it, is looking for a long-term holistic vision of what can be done from East Washington on the medians following through to the 210. And so this will be working with them already. We're working with Lance from Tournament of Roses, who's been integral in coming to our events to see what's possible there, knowing that we have some movement that we need to make sure that can still happen every year during that big event. Next pair. Oops, oh, there he goes. The project scope itself, when you're talking about the landscape design, we do need to remove some trees based on the engineering designs that are going in, and we'll talk about that in a couple slides. But the intent from the city is to preserve as many trees as we can. There are some hugelkultur elements that are on the top. I know that we've heard from some of the community that they don't look in their best condition. We understand that. They really need a lot more water and vegetation. So any trees that are taken out are going to be repurposed into the median itself through mulch and enhancements of the hugelkulturs. And then we'll can use this contiguous greening throughout the medians, even when we look to do the lower landscaping. And though we are removing about 44 trees, you can see here from the quantity of vegetation that's being put in. Over 600 new trees will be planted. In addition to new trees, there'll be large and small shrubs, as well as native, drought-tolerant, walkable ground cover to remove the thirsty turf once and for all. Next slide. So these are some cross sections that give you an idea of what the vegetation will look like. What you can see is the new trees over in, you have the pointer? Yeah, number 3. So 3. Yeah. Those represent the existing hugelkultur. So in areas on the upper parts, we're going to be piping over some of the water from Jones Reservoir in the Hamilton Park, which currently has a leak, and that's going to be integrated into this so we can enhance those hugelkulturs. And you can just see the varying vegetation between all the new plantings. Next slide. In the higher portions, you can see where the eastbound lane sits higher, the west side lane sits a lot higher than the east side lane. We'll have to do a lot more grading in that area to be able to capture the water in the bioretention areas. And so the vegetation will take a longer decline during that area, and then we'll be filling it in with the vegetation that I showed previously. And so I don't expect you to be able to see this, but what you can see is the variation and diversity in species that we are choosing. We worked very closely with your community and all these outreach events to make sure that we were choosing native landscaping. And this gives you an idea of all the species that were chosen specifically by people in this room. Next please. So these are some of the trees that were chosen across the community. What we heard is to keep consistent with the native vegetation, a lot of the oaks that we already see there, as well as flowering perennials. So some of the existing trees, they have a pretty long dormancy stage. They drop their leaves, they look dead most of the year, and then they come back. And so what we heard from the community was to stick with some flowering perennials that we can see all year through. So you have things like the Palo Verde, which is more of a desert varietal, as well as the Western Redbud, and then some of the other ones that you can see, including the Manzanita. Next slide. And so right now we're about 90% design, and the medians are going to take a look that looks something along these lines. Most of the vegetation will cut through the middle of the median to keep it out of the outer edges. There'll be the bioretention areas. The blue lines that you see will be dry walk beds that'll intercept the water from the curb cups coming into the medians. There'll be maintenance areas along the edges for our landscapers to come in and our parks and recs and make sure they're being maintained consistently. Next paragraph. And so this gives you an overview of some of the community benefits. Water quality and water augmentation. We'll be putting groundwater recharge. We'll also be including a much needed enhancement along this corridor, reducing the heat island impact and really absorbing a lot of the traffic and pollution that we know comes down this area and providing some shade canopy. The project itself does align with the general plan. Eaton Wash and the Eaton Corridor is considered iconic in our land plan, and it's important that we preserve the native habitat as well as protect the waterways, which is the intent of this project for the Eaton Wash. Next slide. So the outreach itself, we started in the original one in 2023. We've had 5 outreach efforts to date, including tonight, and we are planning to have another event in January. Right now we're looking at the Eaton Canyon Nature Center, where we'll be displaying the 90% design of the project plans, and I hope you guys can join us then. But the outreach events have looked a lot like this. 2 of them were held in this very room, very open style, where we were bringing in some design boards so you can really get a feel for what the project was going to look like. Our Parks and Recs, Mel sitting here, was here to answer questions about some of the interim planting. Pasadena Water and Power brought in plants, like you can see at this event here, so you were able to touch and feel, and we were able to give these surveys so the community could really understand what they were choosing for the plant palette. Next slide. And some of the key takeaways, like I mentioned before, was the community really wanted to see trees that were native to the community. They wanted to see things that were flowering all year long, bright, beautiful flowers, trees that were staying up, and just all the mixed vegetation along the corridor to give it a really beautiful greening instead of the sparse vegetation that we see now. Slide. The city did go to the Urban Forestry Commission, and we did receive some initial takeaways from them. One of the commissioners had mentioned that they prefer to see more non-native species. Not something we usually hear at the city, but we did want to take their respectful comment into consideration. So on the next slide, we did choose a couple additional varietals. In the top left, we did choose a strawberry tree. It's not native, this specific varietal, although there is a cultivar of it in the Sierra Madre Mountains. What we did instead is we chose a cultivar that had traits that are more specific to the median landscape to make sure that it would thrive. And then we picked some additional oaks and pines to also include in the plant palette itself. And so the design was already fully funded, but the construction funding was still something that the city needed to acquire. And so the city went through and we applied for 2 grants. Urban Greening is a very specific grant program that loves urban vegetation and reimagining of areas of the city. So we applied there, and also to the Safe Clean Water program. But unfortunately with state budgets, both of those took a gap year. So we were unsuccessful in obtaining those, but we did look for another opportunity with Caltrans, who's a cooperative partner, and I'm finally allowed to say it tonight, which is very exciting. I was going to give Gene an opportunity to say this. Do you want to come and tell them the good news? You want me to do it, Gene? Okay. So we have signed. You want to do it?
No, I just wanted to say I'm in competition with Chief Augustine over the best hire in the last couple of years. I wanted to give Dawn credit for all of her hard work, and she's got a great announcement to provide, so I'll let her do the honors.
Well, Caltrans, I used to work for the city of LA for about 15 years before the city of Pasadena, and they're a pretty great partner when it comes to funding. And we were able to secure $8.5 million from Caltrans to fully fund this project, which is very exciting. Our city manager recently signed a letter of intent, so there's still some process that needs to happen before we make a final commitment. But if all goes well, which looks like it will, we'll be able to start construction this next summer, which is just really, really exciting. So. And so final slide, the next steps for us, we will be finishing 90% design. We should have those at the end of this month. We do have our 5th public outreach. We've moved to January just to be considerate of the holidays. So if you have, I left some cards up on the table with the website and the QR code, but we'll announce it there. And Noreen and Gene have been great about announcing our upcoming meetings. We're gonna finalize the designs of the master plan in February, and then we did secure the funding. I was just told tonight I could say that. So funding is now secured, so we will be looking to construct starting in summer of next year, which leaves us right on track. So that's very exciting. Next slide. So my name and information is there. There's also a QR code and a link to the website. Please look at the information. If there's any other feedback you have, I'd be love to hear it. And I'm just really excited to help continue to get this project finally realized. So thank you.
Hi, thank you. Great job. What was the thought process when they asked for a tree that wasn't from the area? It's like a head scratcher.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a head scratcher for us also. I think the comment that we got from the commissioner was that they were concerned if we had all native varietals, and in case there was an insect infestation or something, that we might see a decline in the plants that we planted. But as I showed you, there's quite a bit of diversity, even the natives themselves. As a biologist myself, usually if you see a plant infestation, it attacks a single varietal. So we feel pretty confident with all the diversity in the species that chosen, we wouldn't have that issue. But to be respectful, the strawberry tree, like I said, is found in the Sierra Madre Mountains. And so the cultivar itself is very similar to the native. It's just more conducive to where it's going to be in the median. So we're happy to oblige the commissioners.
I can add that the community had indicated a lot of interest in color as well. So although there was a lot of desire for natives, the color, not that natives can't have color, but it definitely adds to the palette. So it made some sense to sprinkle some additional trees in.
Hi.
About the signals being a little bit longer. So that'll be part of the master plan. We have compiled all that. Department of Transportation, I'll let Dotson speak also, was really great at helping us in our most recent farmers market outreach, where we gathered a tremendous amount of information. That's going to fold into an active transport plan that Department of Transportation is developing. But I'll let Dotson speak as well.
Wow, a lot of support. Thank you for that question. Thank you, Don. This is a great project, and we're really excited that Public Works was able to acquire the funds and bring in us as transportation to help improve Sierra Madre. As part of the master plan, we are putting together a new active transportation plan starting in 2025 that will be kind of an update of all the city's past plans in terms of what we've achieved, where we've wanted to be, and where we want to go in terms of making Pasadena an easier place for people to get around, whether they're in a car, in a bus, on foot, and more safely as well. And so you'll be hearing from us in 2025 when that plan comes. Please attend. These plans only happen when we hear from residents about what they want and what they want to see in their neighborhoods. Thank you.
I think specifically your question was about site distance at the, We will definitely keep that in mind and certainly hold the taller plants back far enough to create sight triangles for traffic.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ellie Captain. I live a few and Don, thank you very much for all of the communication. Just want to compliment you. I am here tonight as a mom of two kids that go to Norma Coombs, which is the elementary school that runs right along Sierra Madre Boulevard. And on behalf of a group of parents whose kids have started to bike and scooter to school, we're having a lot of fun doing that. You mentioned a couple of our requests to make biking and walking on Sierra Madre safer and easier. I'll mention them tonight just so that they're kind of on the public record. And that would be increasing the length of the timer for crossing Sierra Madre. Even for an adult, it's too short to get across the full boulevard in time. It's especially too short for elementary school students. And I'm delighted to see the street tree suggestions in the plans, because on hot days, it makes a big difference in being able to walk and bike to school. And I'm sure that whatever improvements help the elementary school students will help all pedestrians and cyclists who want to get to the farmers market, get to Victory Park, but just want this group of leaders to know that there's a growing number of elementary school students that are trying to walk and bike to school instead of drive. And anything you can do to make Sierra Madre Boulevard more pedestrian and cycling friendly will really help those kids. Thank you.
Thank you for everything you guys do. I love where I live. I live in Upper Hastings Ranch. Been there like 20 years, so best city in the world. One is the Albertsons in Hastings Ranch, Sierra Madre. Bella, any updates with that? Michelinda, by where Alverno is. For years, we've been needing some kind of flashy walking sign for the kids there. And I've talked to Noreen a bit about that. And I guess there's been some drama in the past with the city of Sierra Madre. I don't care about drama. I just care about safety. We need something there for the kids. The third thing is, Hamilton Park. Been asking for years too. We need shade for the playground. I mean, my kids are in their 20s already, but I've been asking since they were little. And it's a shame that we don't have any kind of shade. And they say it's because of the reservoir, blah, blah, blah. And I've talked to architects, I've talked to different people, and they're like, nope, that doesn't make sense. So I'm bringing that up again. And that's it. Thank you.
Great presentation. I'm really impressed with the city. I'm Julie Gomez. I'm a business owner and I live on Villa. I've lived there for 35 years and my kids went to Assumption, et cetera, et cetera. But since this ended up being a tree meeting for me, I think I have to bring something up, is that the communication to all our neighbors that have trees that are going to come down, we need to communicate to them. Because mine was cut down. I didn't know that it was sick. Just all of a sudden, the city arborist came, and I told Gene about it already. He knows about it, and it's on next door. You can see my comments. It came down, a knock on the door, just like that, no notice, a green spot. And if I had known, I would have liked to have been involved in that. I don't know if any of you have trees that are the city curbs, and if you're going to be knocking how many? 50 or 140 for Sierra Madre?
There'll be 44, but they're only in the medians themselves. There won't be any street
Any on the streets, okay.
No
Apparently, mine was a non-native, a chicory, and apparently many of them are going to be coming down. So, I think the trees in our city, we're known for Tree City. I think that we need to, I know new is coming, but how about the old trees? I would have had the opportunity to save it, I know the arborist told me. Who's in charge of the arborist in our community?
I am not sure. I will have to check, but I don't believe the trees that were removed recently had any bearing whatsoever.
No, I don't think so either, but I think it's appropriate to bring it up because I live one block from where the parade ends.
Okay.
And I'm impacted by that Sierra Madre and the gentleman in there that talked about the cross traffic. That's important. Okay. So it gives me an opportunity to tell my neighbors too. I think living in this area, we need to stand together. And my complaint apparently came from a neighbor, not a knock on me, but to the city. And consequently, that neighbor also complained about another tree and they cut down my neighbor's tree. And so that to me is his neighbor. That's not neighbor to neighbor. That's not friendly. I just want to get that message out to everyone and to
I
you.
can carry that message to our forestry.
Yes, Kenny Graham was the arborist.
Sure.
But I don't know who's in charge of that whole department. I don't see any parks or.
I actually work in public works, engineering though, not in forestry. But I could tell you that I know the city loves our trees, unless they were ill in some way or.
Well, obviously it was. I was not aware, but apparently I went online. I'm very good on the computer, and the protocols for that, the demolition of trees, has not been updated since 2014. I think you need to look at that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, I have a couple questions. One about insurance, one about AI, and one about drones. About insurance. So recently, the City Council raised the issue of to issue a letter to the governor asking for declaring a state of emergency. I actually have with me a copy of one of the cancellation notices that one of the community developments received in this district that the city receives a copy of. And so what is the city proposing to do to work with the governor, with the state legislator, with the county of Los Angeles or the city or the insurance commissioner to address this insurance issue? On AI, there was news recently that the fire department was implementing AI in their department. And earlier in the year, one of the council members asked the city staff if there was an AI policy. So my question is, as a follow-up to that, if there's any AI policy in the city, and if the government is part of the Gov AI coalition to implementing best practices on the use of AI by governments. And then my last question is, does the fire department have plans to bring drones into your program? And if so, what would be the timeline? And is there a plan? If so, are there plans to do proactive community engagement around that? Thank you.
Thank you for the questions. I'll answer the first one about insurance. So we did propose along some other cities at the county of San Bernardino, county of San Mateo, Placer, and Shasta, I think, were the four that had, before us had asked the governor and the commissioner of insurance to declare a state of emergency. So we brought a similar resolution at the request of one of the council members. The council did not decline to declare or to request that a state of emergency be declared, but did say that there's a crisis in our insurance. And I think that's right. There is a crisis for you all, for myself as a homeowner, but also for the city. We have seen double-digit increases year after year after year. Our self-insured retention is what we have to take care of ourselves, like our deductible, is $5 million. So in essence, we're self-insured. But that doesn't matter. They're still telling us next year it's going to go up another 25 to 40%. That's the initial estimate. So there is a crisis. We took that first step with the resolution. We're also reaching out to the insurance commissioner. We're asking his office to come down and present and tell us what they're doing and put some pressure on them to treat it as a crisis. And I encourage you to attend that meeting. It's just there's so much going on. It's hard to find time on their schedule and in our council agenda. But we're working on it. It should happen maybe not by the end of the year because we're going to close the chambers and do some upgrades, but probably the early part of next year.
Hi, good evening. I can take the drone question. Your timing's actually really interesting. We, in that fire over the weekend, our neighbors from Glendale came in and we utilized, they have a tethered drone. And we had 6 houses on fire and we were trying to utilize the best resources as well as make sure we tracked for safety wise. We put their tethered drone up in the air and that goes up about 50 feet. Gave really good video intel. Some of the areas that we'd really like to use drones, almost every weekend, as the city manager knows, we go on mountain rescues up in the mountains, as well as on our brush fires, so that we could have good intel. I say all that. There's about 3 or 4 things that are kind of like high priorities for us, and adding a drone for good intel and safety is on that list. I would like to say, if we are able to achieve funding, that would happen within the next couple years. And then right ahead of that, we want to make sure we have a good type policy on when it's appropriate, when we want to use it, and what the boundaries are for that. Did that answer your question? Okay.
So the article that came out is actually supposed to be data-driven technology. So that is a technology that will be coming to the city. We're expecting it early 2025. What we will be using is actually the end product of how AI was used. So we're not using it ourselves. That technology is called Genesis Protect. It's basically improving on the plan of our evacuation that was generated in 2023 before I came on. So we're really improving on that plan. We're breaking down some of our zones that were created, and where that technology comes in is they've gathered the data from census data, they compiled it, and they've used that data to create the zones so that our zones aren't 10,000 people, and instead it's something more manageable, like 1,000 people. And so that's basically what we're using that for. And again, we're using the end product of the AI, not the actual AI itself. I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
I'll add one additional thing, and we did this in our tabletop last week. The AI can allow us to do fire modeling of where a fire will be with weather conditions. So it will automatically put in, hey, it's 90 degrees out, it's 10% humidity, and we have 30-mile-an-hour winds out of the east. It will take in all those weather conditions and tell us where that fire is going to travel in the next 30 minutes, 1 hour, 3 hours, which is really good intel when you're trying to determine, do we need to evacuate a neighborhood, or is there a portion of the neighborhood that we can shelter in place? And now we can be laser focused and only have to evacuate 2 blocks instead of the entire neighborhood, which if you have narrow streets, one way in, one way out, being laser focused is really important because we can maximize the amount of people we can quickly evacuate rather than bugging up all the streets. So we're really utilizing that technology to give us good information to help us make decisions.
My question is this, and I'm glad there are a number of the officials here. There are a few things floating out there that may or may not be true regarding this public works project. One of the things out there, and this is a great opportunity to get truth and direct information out there, is that either the Planning Commission or Public Works or DOT is planning to road diet Sierra Madre Boulevard and take a lane of traffic out of there. I'm just curious to what the thought process is. Is that on the table? And if so, what do you plan to do to keep that from becoming the fiasco that the Orange Grove issue was? And I would very much love to hear the answers, let you guys get the facts out there. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Good question. So during the outreach, and as I mentioned, we've had 5 to date. We heard it from the community at every outreach event. Like, where did Ellie go? Like she mentioned earlier, that there's a lot of concern from the community about the rates of the cars traveling, the pedestrian connectivity, and a potential opportunity for road diet. So for this project for Public Works, we are looking at designing and implementing the median project. The purview of doing road diets falls on Department of Transportation, so I'll let them speak after. But our job here for this project was to take all the community feedback, whether it was with respect to the median project itself or the larger master plan. So each one of our outreach events has been fostering that information, taking that into consideration, and it'll be packaged up for the Department of Transportation to make a decision down the road. But it's not something that Public Works would be doing.
Thank you for that question. We've heard that too, which we're a little surprised by as we just started this process. But at this point in time, everything is on the table because nothing has been ruled out yet. But this is all we're just collecting information from what residents have desired or have expressed desire for. So, we've heard requests for everything, and it's a little early for us to determine what we want to do without really sussing out what the impacts would be, but that's where we're at. It's pretty early. Yeah.
And will those decisions mostly be data driven?
Everything we do starts data driven, but at the same time, we always end up with, really, best what your community desires. So all of our projects start off data driven, as you see on all our plans, but ultimately, whether it's a go, no go, or how our projects actually look like will really evolve during public outreach and community feedback.
Just wanted to reiterate that the funded portion of the project is median only. No discussion about lane configurations or lane changes in the funded portion of the project. Just make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. I do have a median. I live on the median on Sierra Madre Boulevard. Since the median is being watered, it has turned into an amazingly effective nursery for gophers. And I am inundated with gophers. Our whole neighborhood is inundated with gophers. And I'm really not trying to, I don't want to kill these things. I don't want to put the poison down, but it is out of control.
Yeah, we've also heard that comment. They are very persistent, those gophers. So some of the elements I talked about, especially in the higher portions towards Michelinda, where we're piping the water in from Jones Reservoir, will help abate them because gophers like ground, but they don't like water and rocks very much. We're also looking at other options. There's some stormwater capture contraptions that you can put underneath, which is like a caging system that we can put underneath the soil to help capture the stormwater and also try to dissuade the gophers. But we'll do our best with it. We don't believe the work that is in there will propagate them any, and we'll do our best to mitigate them through nature-based solutions.
I think that the work will help with that. I'm just wondering, in the meantime, can anything be done? Because it's getting worse and worse and worse. The problem's not going away. It's just becoming, they're rodents. They have babies. They have lots of babies.
I don't know how I can help the gopher babies. Mel is here from Parks and Recs. Mel, I don't know if you have any suggestions that Parks doing to help mitigate the gophers.
Well, hello, everyone. Well, we do a little bit of mitigation. We have a machine that it's kind of a carbon monoxide machine, not really carbon monoxide, but it kind of gasses them out. That takes effect over time. As you said, we can't poison them, we can't trap. So what do, right? So we try to find solutions. But that's probably the best that we can do. Hopefully working with them with their mitigation efforts, it will take effect, but it will take some time. But we do as much as we can.
So I want to thank you for your presentations and all the information that you conveyed. I have a question that wasn't part of the agenda, but as a newer resident living on Orange Grove Boulevard, I want to know what efforts, if any, or plans are being made to slow the traffic I live on the stretch of Orange Grove and Martello, but routinely there are accidents as people speed along Orange Grove from Allen all the way to Altadena Drive. There's no slowing, calming measures, and I'd hope that there's something going to be done into calming the traffic there.
Thank you for the question. So, yes, we do have some plans coming up to slow down Orange Grove. We know the stretch, kind of where you live, there's not a lot of traffic signals.
There are none.
So, exactly, yeah. So we do have some upcoming traffic signal projects that are finally funded and are scheduled for construction in 2025. So Orange Grove Craig is one. So as these new signals come online, We've had really good effectiveness in programming the signals to make sure that people aren't going too fast. We're slowing people down at reasonable distances. So when there's not a lot of traffic, we don't want to just give someone green lights for 2 miles straight. We want to break up traffic a little bit. So those signals will be coming online, and I think Brent has a better idea of the schedule.
Yes, I was just going to follow up. Council awarded that contract for Orange Grove Craig signal. It's been within the last 2 weeks, and I would assume that we're going to start construction sometime January, February. So right around the corner.
Great. Thank you.
Hello. I'd also like to thank you for all coming out tonight. I'm a 25-year resident up here of Hastings Ranch. Never really seen the coyote problem so out of hand. And like, I guess they have babies every year, but what department or who from the city we could talk to about this? There's a lot of negative interactions with people's pets and these coyotes. They're all day long. They're running the streets.
Thank you for that question. We're blessed here in Pasadena. We're one of only 3 cities in all of California that has a public health department. It's us, Berkeley, and Long Beach. The other 485 cities do not have a public health department. The issue of the coyotes is headed up by our public health department. They have on their website, they have some tips for reducing coyote population. They work with Pasadena Humane. And if you'd like, you give me your contact information, I can have our Acting Director of Public Health, Manuel Carmona, speak to you about the problem. We're on it, we're looking at it. And, there was earlier in the council a debate about whether or not to euthanize some of the coyote. And, what public health science will tell you is if you do that, the coyotes that remain can see that they're dwindling in numbers, then they produce a whole lot more. And so there's got to be different, smarter ways to really reduce that population. But we understand the, danger it can pose, and certainly the frustration. So if you don't mind, I'll reach out to you afterwards, get your information. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is James Maddox, and I live on Paloma between Altadena Drive and Allen. Also that's on the NASCAR listing of speedways. And the more expensive your automobile is, the faster you go. I don't have young children. I don't own a dog, but these people go by. And I'm asking, what about entertaining the same kind of clocking device that is on Mountain at Paladora? And I know that might be an inducement for people to speed up, but do something about it. I've been trying to get some of my technology people to automatically deploy the things that the police department does when they want to flatten tires. But no one's done that. But in all seriousness, these people are flying down the street, and the more expensive the car, the faster these. I'm trying to keep my social worker happy. Forget it. The faster these idiots go. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Unfortunately, we are in that time where the racing culture, the tire spinning and all the things that they do is kind of at its zenith, right? It's a big deal right now. Even the people who are selling the cars and selling the auto parts and all those things are making a big deal out of it, Motorsport Magazine and things like that. For us, we're going to approach it with the 3 E's. You've heard me say it before: education, engineering, and then enforcement. So we're having a robust education piece by making sure that on our website and certainly at our community meetings, we're out talking about what can be done from educating folks on what to do, what not to do, et cetera. Then there's the engineering piece, which you heard a little bit of here today from the folks that were on the mic talking about plans that are coming, and certainly short order, we hope to get some long-term solutions in place. But then comes the enforcement piece, and that's what we're responsible for. So I want to put 2 things out there. One, when you start to see these things happen and they're kind of clustering in an area, make sure you give us a call. Don't assume that we know about it and we're not doing anything. Give us a call so we can get out there and take care of it. The other part of it is we send our traffic control folks and our mitigation units out there on a regular basis. Clearly, I'd be insulting your intelligence if I said I could put someone out there all the time, every day. That's just not feasible. But we're trying to address it and really use data to find out what the times and the appropriate times to have our folks out there so we can stop that. Downside is people are pretty, they find exceptions to the rules. And when we go out there and enforce it, it seems like it stops. And then when we move to enforce the next place, it starts again. And so we are constantly trying to chase it down, and we will not stop until we can get a handle on it. But I think with our partnerships with the folks up here, we'll find a long-term solution for it. But certainly call us, and we're going to make sure we're paying attention.
Terrific, thank you. The only thing with a car out there is it's like a lock. It keeps honest people honest. This is such a bad problem on Paloma that, and the fire chief can confirm it for you. We had a call at one of my neighbors, and one of these yahoos, this is a large fire truck is sitting in the street, and this yahoo never slowed down. Now, they had a nice, expensive car, and that maybe left them with the impression that they were privileged. But something has to be done about it, and it has to be done aggressively until someone gets hurt significantly. Thank you.
Just one last comment on that. There is an opportunity here with some of the changing of legislation that we can apply, misdemeanors where it might have been an infraction prior. We're going to be looking at those things. And I think you're going to start seeing a shift in the desire to prosecute folks that are either taken into custody or dealt with regard to the racing.
Hi. My question is with regard to the Port and the Hope outreach teams. Both of them are invaluable, wonderful programs that, love to see them continue and prosper. Do you have any numbers on these two programs that you could share with us today, along with perhaps a brief summary of what each of them do, and the good work that they do?
I apologize on the Hope side. I do not have numbers, but I'll make sure to get those numbers and provide them to you, and make sure I get them through our council member out to your folks.
I can give you some port numbers. For the 12-month period from June of 23 to June of 24, almost 500 dispatch calls. They transported to 23 different detox centers, 10 different dental appointments, 51 doctor appointments, 42 mental health appointments, 177 field-based health assessments, and most importantly, they were able to house 42 individuals. And as many of you know, many of these homeless individuals initially do not want Port and Hope services, and they may visit them weekly for months before they're able to get them to agree to services. And then their entire goal is to reduce whatever the barrier is to get them to services and ultimately housed. So if that means they need to drive them to DMV to get a driver's license because they can't apply for a job or insurance or whatever it is, and without an ID card, they're going to help them do that. No barrier is too high or too small for them, for Port and Hope to help with that. And as many of you are aware, we were able to add a second Port team, and they just continue to do great work. If you need more data on a regular basis, I provide it to the city manager monthly from the Port side. We're happy to share quarterly data with Councilmember Masuda and Noreen. We're happy to do whatever to celebrate the great work they do.
I just have a general question in regards to East Pasadena with all the vacant storefronts on Colorado from Sierra Madre to Michelinda. 7 weeks ago, there was a vacant storefront at 2600 East Colorado where a homeless person broke in and set up a camp in the back in the parking lot. I called the police, and the police said, if I'm not the owner of the property, they would not be able to respond. That individual did end up costing Pasadena Yamaha 24 e-bikes being stolen, that they're renting an adjacent garage in the alley. It's Stewart Alley, Weir Alley. But my question is, we have a lot of vacant storefronts and the homeless are breaking in. When we as residents see it, we can't do anything about it. We call the police. They can't do anything because I'm not the store owner to report it. It did eventually get resolved. I did call code compliance and spoke to, I always get her name wrong, but she sent a letter to the owner. It's an out-of-state owner, and it's just been this week resolved. They put up fencing, and there's a contractor cleaning up. But we are losing stores in East Pasadena, and that's an opportunity for the homeless to break in. And I got frustrated, and I called 5 or 6 times to dispatch, and nothing ever happened until code compliance got involved about 6 weeks later. Thank you.
Well, I will be open and honest with you that any call that comes to us, we are obligated to respond, and I will hold the folks accountable to make sure they're responding. I'm not sure what would happen to tell our folks that we can't respond on it because you're not the owner. There might be some things in the after action that we have to have the owner there to take care of. But as far as the initial response is concerned, if you ever run into that, you give our commander Dawkins, who's responsible for the patrol division, and we will definitely take care of that so that doesn't happen. Anytime you call us, we should be responding forthwith.
Okay. I mean, I called over a 3-4 week period in response to 2600 East Colorado. So it's on your call logs. I mean, the dispatchers were courteous and professional, but they kept on saying, "Are you the owner?" I says, "No, I have several apartment buildings right adjacent to that area. So I have a vested interest that the homeless people aren't in the neighborhood because they come down onto my property. They break into my tenants' cars, my garages and such." And I got very frustrated. And, the Hope team was supposed to respond, but when I called back, they didn't have any information. I did call Gene's, my council district office about it, but I probably 11 or 12 calls, and I do believe it was all code enforcement that finally got the ball rolling to contact the owner to secure the property. But it just seems that it's very obvious it's a homeless person. He broke in, he's setting up camp in the parking lot. Why can't we do something about that?
If we didn't meet the mission on the initial call, I'm going to address that. As far as the homeless piece of that and some of the after action stuff, that's going to take a look with our partners to try and figure out what the medium and long-term solutions will be. But we should always be responding if you call us, and I'll address that.
Okay, 2 more questions, and then we're gonna stop the Q&A, and then we'll go out and talk to all of you one-on-one for any questions.
Hello, my name is Claudia. My neighbor and I, we're next door neighbors on Del Rey, right across street from St. Luke's Hospital. Last year we had a lot of kids coming in, breaking in, vandalizing, and that was kind of calmed down for a bit. But just in the recent weeks, we started to see more of an uptick. Just this week, we had, I think, about 20 kids breaking in, 1 security officer on site. We both called the police several times. I don't know if the police came to see what was happening, but these kids are now everything's fenced up, but they're coming in and they're making holes in the fence and they're getting in and they're vandalizing.
Spray painting on the hospital, outside of the hospital and on the inside.
So the spray paint outside was actually what I'm going to call it was a hate comment, a racist hate comment. Pasadena is not about that. I've been there 15, 16 years, and just last year and this year is when we start to see a lot of these kids, and we don't know what else to do except call the police, and then when the police gets there, they can't go onto the property because, like the gentleman said earlier, we're not the owners of the property, but it's causing a lot of fear, concern, because these kids are running rampant and they're coming in bunches of like
like 30.
30 kids at a
And
time.
it'll be like 5 carloads. And they'll be out there with their flashlights, their hoodies on, and they'll break into the hospital. And I call the police. I call the police a bunch, like a lot, like at least like 3 times a week.
So we don't know what else to do. I mean, is there a solution? Is there any kind of a plan? What's happening with that?
Well, let's talk as soon as we get done so we can get the details. We can pull up the call logs and see what our involvement was. I've got my deputy chief back here. We can sit here and talk to you a little bit. Maybe we can cut to the chase and get to what we need.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming to this meeting and asking all the questions. How about a big hand for the staff that's here today? And I want to thank the media department as well, because they get here early and have to set up, and you can see what they're doing back there, and setting the mics up. So thank you so much, media department. So we're going to stay for one-on-one questions, and right now this portion of the meeting is over. Thank you.